grow light sunrise and sunset feature. So it's often said that, hey, replicate nature. Nature has a sunrise, they have a sunset, there's a light spectrum in there that's different for both of those. That's what's best for the plant. So grow lights now have a sunrise and sunset feature. Now, Dr. Bruce Bugbee, shout out to him, he actually did a study in regards to the rate of photosynthesis for a sunrise sunset versus just turning the lights on full blast. And he had mentioned the plants were able to take it full blast. So that's one thing that he kind of uncovered there in one study. Of course, studies need to be repeated in order for it to be true fact, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But sunrise, sunset feature, is there any benefit to this or not?
I definitely think there is. I think when you're trying to get a holistic expression of the plant, it makes sense to consider that some of the light energy coming in during those early morning hours or even in the late evening, it's not primarily used for photosynthesis. There are wavelengths of light that come in and they just kind of help spread a certain kind of message in the plant so it can kind of start to express different things, maybe do things like close the stomata. At nighttime, certainly this is true. Typically when studies are done on things like this, what they're looking at doing is just measuring one variable. And in this case, it would be, let's say, quantum yield or the photosynthesis overall in the plant. And when you take just that narrow slice out of the rest of the plant and what the rest of the plant is doing, it becomes a little bit more clear, plants will take in the amount of light energy that you give to them. And if you just full blast turn on the lights right away and then just turn them off at nighttime, if you're only measuring photosynthesis, you'll see the results skewed from that perspective. But if you're looking at things like gene expression or even the migration of the phytochromes from the outermost layer of the leaf where they are during the daytime to a little bit closer in the nucleus of the cells at nighttime, there's this physical migration. So if you took a cross-section of a leaf and looked at it from the side, like a profile shot, you'd find that the leaf is very dynamic. The chlorophyll and most of the pigments that absorb light energy, those are going to be close to the outer layers of the leaf, right? And as you get into the deeper layers of the leaf, more of that light has been filtered out. And of course, on the underside of the leaf, almost all of the light has been filtered out. And the only thing that's really coming through is a little bit of green light. That's why, plants look green effectively from the underside. They also reflect a little bit of that wavelength of light too. But, the point I'm trying to make here is that there are physiological processes that happen that have been fine-tuned over the course of millions, if not tens or even hundreds of millions of years. Plants are very used to the rising and the setting of the sun, and there's nuanced things that happen that have to do more with gene expression and kind of like the big picture of what a plant is, as opposed to just like, hey, photosynthesis, quantum yield and carbohydrate production, Calvin cycle. These things are just like tiny components. They're very important components, don't get me wrong. They're kind of like the primary engines, but you have all these accessory things that get tagged along with it. So I do think that, natural sunrise and sunset really are going to just help create a better expression in the plant overall.
That makes sense. Now, what if this grow light just simply tunes up the amount of light and doesn't change that spectrum to truly simulate sunrise and sunset? Would you say that's kind of a wasted feature, or would you still see that as being valuable?
I think there could be value to it for sure. I think to replicate perfectly what the sun does kind of depends on where you are, so to speak. Like if you're, in the southern hemisphere, northern, if you're high altitude, for example, you might get more UV light exposure on those plants versus a lower altitude, you might get less. So there are differences for sure, and there's no such thing as a light that can truly replicate the full spectrum of the sun. I mean, the sun is just, it operates on a fundamentally different principle. No one really has like a nuclear reactor that's powering their grow lights. They oftentimes have LEDs, which are totally different in terms of the mode of operation, or they have high intensity discharge like metal halide and high pressure sodium lights. Those things are fundamentally different than what the sun is and how the sun puts out, different wavelengths of energy. And really that full spectrum, I mean, it's not just the visible light spectrum. It's, infrared, for example. The planet is heated by the sun as well. So there are things to consider outside the context of just what the plant is capable of absorbing for the purpose of photosynthesis.
This clip is brought to you by Happy Hydro. For all your garden equipment needs, visit happyhydro.com, link is in the video description, and use the discount code MrGrowIt.